the third episode of Let's Write About It. I am your host, Lex J, but you can just call me Lex. And I just gotta say, if you missed the last episode, then you need to go and listen after you finish this one because it was good, okay? Okay. Anyway, for today's episode, we will have special guest Miss Jadlyn Rose joining us. Jadlyn Rose is living to experience creativity manifested through love, music, art, food, and the spectrum of things in between, striving to embrace the gift of creativity from her creator every day. Bringing on my friend, my sister, Miss Jadlyn Rose. Hi, Jadlyn.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, girl. It's good. It's nice to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm happy that you accepted it and, you wanted to be a part of it because, sometimes our friends throw us into things and they're like, oh, I have this perfect thing that you'll be perfect for. And then they tell you what it is and you're like, actually, that's not perfect for me at all. So I'm happy, one, that you wanted to do it, but two, that you felt like it fit you and, that you could contribute in some way. So yes, I'm really excited that you decided, yes, I want to,
Absolutely.
Of course. Because also you don't break out of your shell often, so yes for breaking out of your shell. Period. I love that. But also I feel like you're way more. You are so much more than what you gave me in your bio. Can I tell people a little bit about you and who you are and
of course
how I've grown to love you? I've met Jadlyn. We went to the same school, but we didn't really know each other like that. I feel like saw each other like in passing maybe, but we didn't really know each other. And then we joined a group together, doing things that we both love, singing and singing for God. So that was great. And we met through that. And then we became like super close over like this past year. It's crazy because we've grown to know so much about each other. We've grown to be a part of like this amazing family. But in that, I have learned that like you're an amazing singer. You're an amazing songwriter. Like you are super freaking talented in all different directions. Like your writing, your art, your poetry, like everything that you do, it always speaks heavy volumes. Like you don't always have a lot to say, but when you do have things to say, you make sure they are of great value and importance. And I think that is very important. A lot of people say things just to say things. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna talk because it sounds good. But it's like when Jadlyn talks, she has something to say, so that's always like refreshing to hear you talk and hear you like actually want to share your work, because it's like, yes, you're amazing. So thank you for wanting to share that, with me and with others, So that is Jadlyn. That is Jadlyn Rose that I have come to know and love and just be a part of my life. Is so amazing to have you. So thank you for, again, deciding to be on the show.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So I'm gonna loosen you up a little bit because, as I stated, you're not always a woman of words. So we're gonna loosen you up really quick with a few, opening questions just to dive in a little bit. How did you come up with your pen name, Jadlyn Rose?
Well, I use Jadlyn Rose as my stage name. It's my first and middle name, which I've definitely grown to love, and I've definitely done a lot of deep diving into what not only Jadlyn Rose means in the name dictionary, but also what it means to me and how I can live up to that meaning. And as the years have gone by through the course of my life, I've grown to really identify myself with my name and the story behind it.
Yeah. And I think you have done a really great job in doing that, because for one, like, I didn't even know your middle name. I didn't know your middle name was Rose, and I was like, why does she go by Jadlyn Rose? And so, like, that one day when I asked you and you told me, I was like, I did not know that was your middle name. So, like, I think you've done, like, a really great job in, like, taking that name on, not just because it is your, your first and your middle name, but because, like, you found significance in the name, like, just, this name fits me because of these reasons, not just because it's my name, So I think that that's beautiful, because a lot of times, a lot of creatives stray from their, their government name. They usually take on a stage name that's completely different. So I think it's really beautiful that you love your name and, you take pride in that.
Thank you.
Of course. What inspired you to start writing?
All my life, I've always been a singer, and I've always done arts and crafts and other forms of creativity. And growing up, I would always hear, "Oh, you're gonna be a singer when you grow up, and I can't wait to see you on stage." And I'm like, "Oh, if I'm gonna be on stage, I should probably write some things so that I have some original stuff to share." And then by starting that, I started crossing paths with other creatives and seeing how they express themselves with how they write, how they dance, and then that's how I got into poetry. That's how I also started to explore myself as a dancer, and even in my art, in crocheting and drawing, painting, all that. But yeah, that's how I started.
I love that. And I think it's like so important for like every creative to know that like you can start off with like this one interest, and it will spiral into so many other things by the time like you fulfill that dream, because it's like it's so much more into the art world than just like what you're going into it for. It's like college for football players. Like most football players want to go to college just to play football, and they're like, "Oh, I want to go to college for football." But it's like, okay, well, what are you going to major in, And that's kind of like the same thing with creatives, where it's like we have one specific thing that we want to do, but there are these like many outlets that lead us to this, this big grand dream that we have. But like sometimes it takes, building blocks to get there, and they're not always like, stumbling blocks, just building blocks where it's still in the same field, it's still in the same category, but you're just using a different way to get there, And I think that's great because, excuse me, a lot of people don't realize that, especially not in our field. I think most creatives have kind of like, grasped that concept of like, okay, I may have to do other things before I can become a singer or that professional dancer that I want to become. And I think that's like, that should be like something that other people take on when trying to understand the creative world, you know?
And I realized that as a creative is like, I'm not just Jadlyn Rose, a singer-songwriter. I can be just as much a singer-songwriter as I am a poet, as I am a knitter and crocheter, as a home chef, as a friend. But
yeah, that's true. That's really important. I'm glad that you said that, and more importantly, like for our listeners to like hear that, like, oh, because I know my family, like they ask me all the time, like, when are you gonna be on TV? And it's like yes, that's one of my goals. That's one of them. But like also like, hey y'all, I write too, like, and are y'all only gonna support me if I'm in front of the camera? Like if I'm directing a film, are y'all gonna support that just as strong? Are you gonna be behind that, as well? Or is it just like if my face is on the screen or whatever? Because it's like usually the first thing that they say, like, oh, I can't wait to see you on the big screen. And it's like, well, what if I wrote what's on the big screen, So it's like, are you still gonna support that, It's like I'm making just as much or even more as the actors. I'm just as successful, and it's like I'm doing what I love. I'm still in the art field. But it's like I'm also interested in writing too, So that was really important. I'm really happy you said that, because I think a lot of people miss that when looking at like art and everything. So thank you for touching on that. Wow, that was a perfect segue into how do you plan to make a difference through your art?
I think another thing I've come to learn at the ripe age of 23 is that I cannot save the world with my art, it was definitely a big awakening compared to how I used to feel as a 16-year-old creative, as an 18-year-old creative, as a 21-year-old creative. I can't write for the sake of other people so that they hear my story and feel inspired by it. Like, great if you do feel inspired by my words, but it's mostly just, I can only be me and do my best at being me. And I've also realized when I am doing my best being me, that's also what's best for the people around me.
Yeah.
And however they choose to receive me, that's just, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I think that's also something that like people miss, is that like first your art is for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like as an artist, we write for ourselves first before we even have that like urge to put it out to inspire others. Like every creative that I've ever known, or every writer that I've ever known, they've always started off with like a napkin or a little small notebook that they kept to themselves, or you know, just little scraps of paper that they would find to write on and just store away or lose sometimes, you know. And it's like most of the time that's how things start. Like you write for you write to release, and then one day you wake up and you're like, this is really inspiring, you know, not just for others, but like for me first, you know, like I'm reading this and I'm getting inspired by like my own things that I'm writing, you know. So it's like, okay, I want to spread this. So like I think that's truly important, you know, like you write for you first, and it's really important to find like you in your art, especially after sharing it with so many people, and also finding those pieces where it's like, okay, this isn't for everybody, this is just for me, you know, and I'm gonna keep this piece just for me so I can reflect on and look at later and see like how I've grown from then to now, you know. So yes, I think that's really important, and that's a really good point that you made. Like, you know, you can't always write for other people, you write for you. I love that. Yes.
It hurts. Striving to be wiser in my ways, going days without the appreciation I desire. Not that I require it, nor does that devalue the ones that admire it. I'm just tired of it. Although it's inspiring, striving for what I aspire to be and thriving, there's no denying the faith that I have. I'm undoubtedly favored by the heavens, and I know that. So when I see a disturbance in my presence, I can't help but to not be mad. I'm actually wholeheartedly glad, because it's the Holy Spirit that shows up in my character. Sometimes I wonder if others can feel that he's there. Even in all my humanness, nothing is taken too personally, when the real battle isn't wrestling with the physically. Even in all my humanness, my mind is overheated when my heart is beating with the boiling blood beneath the boundaries of my skin, rattling the bones within. But deep within, even in all my humanness, despite feeling defeated and rumination repeated, not to sound conceited, but I truly believe it, I'll never be broken. To feel pain is a gift I've been given, and it's my decision to be a better person, pray away the opinions of the people who don't have the final say, sing a song or sit in silence until the waves are no longer violently raging within. Even in all my humanness, I'll never be broken.
Yes. I love this piece, because it's talking about something everybody can relate to, and that's being human. You know, like nobody in this world is perfect. Nobody in this world has it all together. Nobody, you know, like has all the answers, but it's like at the end of the day, we're all human, and it's something that we can all relate to, of like, okay, I feel this way sometimes, but at the end of the day, in all my humanness, you know, and it's like, it's so refreshing to hear it, like, wow, you know, like, you're right. Like, dang, this does hurt, you know, like listening to it and hearing it, it's like, I can feel and relate to every single thing that you're saying in this piece, and it's like, yes, girl, we're on the same page. Like, yes.
Thank you.
Of course, it's a beautiful piece, and I love it. Every time I hear it, it's so amazing, and it reaches a place of understanding, you know, like for me, more importantly, the part where you say, you know, but deep within, even in all my humanness, despite feeling defeated and rumination repeated, not to sound conceited, but I truly believe it, I'll never be broken. And it's like, oh my goodness, if I can get anything on my shirt or like on my hoodie or something that can like describe my 2022, it will be that right there. It's like all of this, feeling defeated day after day after day after day, facing so many problems. Like, you know, you experienced some of them with me firsthand, you know, so it's like going through all of these things, and it's like at the end of the day, I can't even say that I have truly been defeated though, because it's like I know deep down inside I will never be broken. And it's like starting each day with that feeling is like refreshing, because it's like, okay, whatever happens, you know, like, yes, you know, and like I'm gonna ride this wave, I'm gonna ride it out, like whatever happens, I know that I'm gonna be good. And if I'm not, then I know like something is right around the corner for me, you know. So I really, really, really love this piece. Yes, of course. And I also wanted to ask you a question, like, I think it hit different this time, or maybe I heard it a different way that I've never heard it. But the part where you say to feel pain is a gift I've been given, what were you feeling when you wrote that? Like, not this face. You look so scared. Like, oh my God, hold on.
It feels like what one would call a blessing and a curse, but honestly, I don't even want to say that. It's just a blessing period to understand what's going on in your body and the magnitude of what's going on in your body, where some people go numb and then they don't know what to do, and then that's how people start acting irrational about things. And especially, let's say going through things with family, like if I feel like this, then I know that this could be going on in this, like whoever's going through this with me. And then I feel like being aware of your pain and the purpose of your pain, it brings people together when you view it that way. But yeah, with my perception of pain, I feel like when you view it as, for example, I like to think of my emotions as guests coming in and out of my house that I have to tend to, like show hospitality to. When you view pain as just another friend of yours, like, okay, like we can hang out for a little bit, but also, okay, I'm gonna need my space, then you won't be consumed by it ever. And when you view everything else on the spectrum of emotion that way, it always, just that idea alone brings me back to me at the end of the day, even in all my humanness.
Yes. That honestly, like, I'm so glad I caught that. And like, honestly, I've heard this piece for like a few times already now, and it's like, excuse me, like, I don't know, but like it stuck out to me, and I was like, I'm gonna ask her what she means by that, you know, because it's like sometimes you read something or you hear something and then you make an interpretation of like, oh, what does that mean to you, or how do I interpret this? But it's like very, very, very rarely do people ask, you know, the artist or writer or what, you know, who wrote the project or the piece, or it's very, very, very rarely that they ask like, oh, what did you mean by this, you know, or like, how were you feeling when you wrote these particular 3, 4, 5 words, you know. It's like, oh, what did this line particularly mean to you? And I don't know, like, I feel like that just opened up a new avenue to me, because I didn't always understand like your positive energy, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't always understand like how you were always so chipper and like so happy, and I was just like, oh my God, what is wrong with her? Like, why is she so happy all the time? Or like, why does she always have like a yes and attitude? And I was just like, okay, is it me, or like what is wrong with her? Like, she's crazy. But it was just like, hearing your answer to that just now, it makes so much sense now, and it like opens my mind up that much more on like why you are the way you are, and like how you keep so much positivity around you, and how like you breathe through everything. Like, oh my God, Jadlyn, you was driving me crazy with breathing, girl. You was driving me crazy. You was like, okay, let's breathe. I was like, oh my God, Jadlyn, we gotta breathe again. But then like when you start facing these different problems, then you're like, okay, I'm gonna breathe. But it wasn't just you, like it was like Ari, like it started with Ari. She would always be like, breathe for 10 seconds, and I'd be like, oh my God, why do I need to breathe? I don't want to breathe. I want to fight, or I want to cuss, or I just want to scream or yell or whatever that's gonna help me feel better. You know?
That's totally okay.
And it's like, but no, like breathing. Once I started breathing, I was like, okay, this helps.
Yeah.
It helps. Nobody has to get the upset Lex. And I can still.
Nobody has to get hurt.
Like, okay? Like, nobody has to get hurt. It's okay. I can breathe, and it's all gonna be okay. But it's like, yes, like now I understand. Okay, this is why Jadlyn breathes so much. Like, this is why every time I turn around, Jadlyn is like, okay, let me take a second to breathe, because if I don't, I'm gonna spaz.
Yes,
I don't want to
period.
spaz. So let me breathe. So yes, like I feel like hearing your explanation for that line just now just opened up like my understanding of like how you are so positive, and like you stay so like chipper and up, and like even when things aren't going as they seem like they are, you always like have a positive attitude about it. So wow, yes, this is you. This piece is you. Everything about it, like I could be sad about this, but I'm actually grateful because I have this. You know, it's like like when you say, so when I see a disturbance in my presence, I can't help but to not be mad. It's like you see the disturbance and you're like, and sometimes, you know, every disturbance takes a little longer, you know, to breathe out of, you know, like sometimes it's a small thing. So you're like, okay, I can breathe for 10 seconds and I'll be okay. But then sometimes something will happen and you'll be like, okay, I gotta breathe for a minute. I have to breathe for a minute.
Or just breathe and hope it's there.
Right. Right. So it's like, you know, it's like those kind of moments. So yes, like this poem, this piece all together in like as a whole, it really depicts like who you are and your positivity and how you spread so much light. So I think, of course, I thank you for sharing this. Like, and it's true what they say. Like when you listen to something or you watch something or like you hear or see things that you didn't even hear. Like I said, I've heard this piece like a few times now, or like 3-4 times now, and it's like questions that didn't even come up, or like coming up, or like topics that didn't even come up, you know, before are coming up now. And it's just like, I love discovering new things about art and people, especially people who present their art, you know, and are vulnerable enough to say like, here, this is the other half of me, here you go, you know. So thank you for
my pleasure.
of course. So now I want to just, you know, dive into your piece a little more and like how you're feeling when you wrote it and everything. So that brings me to my first question. How were you feeling when you wrote Humanness?
I was on a 10-minute break during a really rough shift, and it was, as a team leader, as a supervisor, I often have to pick up on certain places where we need more help. And I just felt a little burnt out. I felt really burnt out, actually. And with my job, I just felt... You ever feel like you're on the last straw, but then you're on the last straw multiple times? So like the last straw is never really the last straw. It was one of those days.
Cool, talk about it.
And yeah, so I just took a moment to pause, and I was so in my head that I felt the need to write. And what I do love about this piece is as if I'm acknowledging my frustration, but then, like how we talked about earlier, breathing, this whole piece is like a deep breath through it all. I come back to myself and what grounds me, who grounds me, and yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's also like for some people to like understand and take into that it doesn't take like some day or month or week, you know, to create something meaningful and impactful, you know. Like you can write something like you said, you were on your 10-minute break and you went and you were feeling stressful and you need to decompress in some way, and it's like most people smoke cigarettes on their break, you know, like to decompress and to relieve some stress that they were feeling. But it's like for performers or for people who don't smoke, or you know, it doesn't have to just be, you know, artists and performers, but like that's a really good tip to give to people just for their everyday lives. Like if something is happening to you, especially at work, you know, like a lot of times things happen to people at work and they can't just leave because they can't just afford, you know, to walk off the job or something, but like they really need something to decompress before they spaz, you know. So it's like having that in the back of their minds of like, oh, I can just, when I get my break, you know, or even just go to the restroom really quick and just take 5 minutes or, you know, whatever, and just sit and write something to get it out so they're not sitting and dealing with that all day. So I think that's really good. And that's a really good, like, advice, you know, too. Like, anybody can do this, you know, like, use this as a tool to help yourself. I think that's beautiful. What place were you at in life when you were writing this piece, like your life, you know, in a whole?
I was working every day for a long amount of hours, and then going to rehearsals in the evening.
Yeah.
And you were there. Yeah. And I wasn't eating much. I wasn't taking care of my body. And I wanted to get away. I just didn't know how. I didn't know where to start over. But God is good. Here I am.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's real. That's real. And I think I can really relate to that because it's like we were dealing with some of the same things at the same exact time. Like, oh, we were like at work all day, barely eating, getting off of work, going to rehearsal, staying at rehearsal for hours on end, and then getting out of rehearsal, going home, going to sleep, because by that time it's too late to eat anything, or, you know, and it's just like, it was a cycle of like, wake up, work, sleep, repeat, and it was like, that was it. It felt like that's what you were doing, literally. And so I feel that because I felt like I was going through the same exact thing of like, oh my God, am I a robot? Am I just moving? You know, like, so yes, I understand.
Malfunction.
Literally, glitch, shut down, glitch. Oh. So yes, I understand that. So yes, I feel you, and I'm happy that you're in a place now to where you don't feel, you know, as overwhelmed, as stressed, as worked, you know. So I'm very happy for that, you know, that transformation for you, that it got better. You know, and it just wasn't.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it just wasn't like you were just stuck stagnant. So yes. And then the last question: why do you feel like this specific piece needed to be heard for our topic, pain?
I felt that this piece shows, one, in real time, how I deal with pain, how I deal with stress, and yeah, that's the only reason, honestly. And it was just, I didn't take any breaks, I didn't edit it, I just wrote, this is my verbal vomit and what my vomit looks like in the most vulnerable way.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that you shared it, and I know someone out there listening on their way to work or on their way from work or, you know, wherever they're going, I know that someone listening somewhere is going to get something from it as well, because it was so powerful. And I think I've told you this before, like when you speak, or like I said, you're a woman of few words, but when you do speak, it's always of great importance and value. And so like just listening to you and hearing you, you know, talk and explain like how all of these things and how this piece and all these moments in your life have, you know, brought you to these moments of vulnerability to where you have sat down and, you know, written a piece in 10 minutes, you know. That's just amazing to hear, because I get to hear a different side of you that I don't always get to hear or don't always get to see. And it's not because we don't talk, but it's just because, like I say, you're a woman of very few words, you know, like you're sweet, you're very loving, you're very kind, you know, but you don't say much, you know? So, and I think more people like you who don't talk much, we should sit back and like listen to more, you know, because it's like, Jadlyn, she's so sweet, she's so cute, she's so, you know, but then it's like, wait, but listen to what she has to say though, because she's saying some really impactful things, you know. So I really, 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 really appreciate you for doing this piece. And like I said, I get something out of it every time I hear it. So I know that our listeners will hear something in it and it will carry them throughout each day, you know. So yes, I feel like you will definitely reach your person, you know. That's always the goal, one person. And you will definitely do that. Yeah, so if that's all, if you don't have anything else for the people, don't forget to shout out your socials and any projects or anything you're currently working on that, you know, you want to shout out and have people to support.
Firstly, thank you to whoever's listening to my art and to the things that I have to say. Hello. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, at Jadlyn Rose, Jadlyn Rose. And you'll be seeing me crocheting a little more in the future, probably cooking more in the future, singing here and there. Yeah.
Yay. And we are so excited. Like I told y'all in the beginning, this is my sister, so this isn't our first trip around the sun together. I know her, we talk and we communicate, and I'm just so very, very, very proud of her. One, for doing this episode, but you know, for two, letting her voice be heard and letting the things that she have to say impact people in the way that they should, you know. So I'm very, very grateful for this episode. And like she said, you can follow her on Twitter and Instagram at Jadlyn Rose, Jadlyn Rose, Rose. And Jadlyn, I thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute honor to do this episode with you. And just to grow and learn more about you. Like, I honestly thought we were gonna sit and like just play and have fun, but like I actually learned about you more. So I'm very excited, like, to know that like we did this, and it was like, okay, great, this was great, but also like it was great work. But I just was sitting and talking to my sister, and you know, getting to know more about you, you know. So yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and good luck on all of your future endeavors and anything that you have coming up. You know, I support you and I'm rocking with you. Gang, gang, giggity gang. Ladies, gentlemen, and my non-binary peeps, you know what that sound means. It's time for listeners write about it. And today's question is brought to you by my most favoriteest Texan that lives in California, Liana. Yeah. How you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. Well, you tell the people what the question of the day is.
The question of the day is, have you ever felt tension between who you are and society's expectation of who you are? And as well as, how do you filter out the tension that society has placed on you?
Ooh, that's a deep one right there. I'm gonna repeat that for y'all in case y'all missed that one. I'm repeating. You can get it on your way home. Yeah? All right now. That was, have you ever felt tension between who you are and society's expectation of you? And how do you filter out society's expectations of you? Well, good doggy. I think I'm gonna go and write about that too.
I already wrote about it.
Oh, well, maybe you can submit it.
I will.
I'll tell the folks how you can do that. I'll tell the folks. All right, listeners. Well, as I was just about to tell my dear friend here, Liana, remember to drop your answer in the comment section on our IG. And if you feel so moved by the question to write your own piece, then you can click the link in our bio and submit your answer. Your response has the potential of getting read on the next LWABI episode. So bring on the pieces. Well. We just got a letter. Wonder who it's from. Shout out to all my Blues Clues watchers, period. Somebody has been listening to Lex write about it, and that makes me happy. We got our very first question in response to last week's question. What do you need to stop doing to make bigger changes? And we have Don B, who sent in a piece that I will be reading for y'all today. To change, I must stop. Stop making excuses. Stop searching for things that don't matter. Stop caring what people think. Stop caring what people say. Stop being afraid to speak up. Stop being afraid to be seen as the bad guy. Because why? Because I am that guy. Grew up quiet, a little shy. But really? So many thoughts in my mind. Many personalities, more than one side. But I'm no two-face or three-face, no triple-double rust face. Word to the dust Drake. Now let me clean my lunch plate. So many times I feel outcasted down under my grave. Each time I evolve, I gotta save face. Checking myself to stay in place. My own lane and my own race. Never the same, but I remain me. Don B! Thank you so much for being our very first listener to write a piece for listeners write about it. Wow, my heart is full. My favorite thing about your piece is that I actually went on a journey with you. Like, you started by listing all of the ways you knew you had to change. Then you came to the realization that you were actually amazing and will no longer look at yourself the way others see you. And I think that's the most beautiful thing anyone could ever decide to do for themselves. So thank you again for submitting your piece, and just being vulnerable with not just myself, but, the listeners for the podcast as well. See, listeners, it's really that easy. If you're feeling the episode and want to send in a piece, please don't hesitate. You never know who your piece can reach. Well, good people, that's all for this episode of Lex Write About It. Thank you for listening. We would love to hear some of your favorite moments from today's episode. And if you want to stay connected with all things LWABI, you can follow our Instagram at LWABI.podcast and our Facebook page at Let's Write About It. They will also be listed in the episode description. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share to keep up on all things LWABI. I am your host, Lex J, and as always, love, peace, and poetry. Until next time, I'm out.